What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive and almost done. Only 2 more shows after this video. The Winter 1976 tour. This featured Andre Lewis on keys. He had started on 75. This would be his last tour. Napoleon Murphy Brock, who had started in 73, his last tour. The original bassist from the Mothers, who this would be his last full tour. Unfortunately, he would come back at a later point in date for special things. And then Terry Bozzio, who started on the Bungle Fury tour, would stick around till 78, early winter 78. And then Frank, of course. Yeah, so I have 3 shows today, March 7th, March 8th, and March 11th. I believe there was a show on the 10th, but it's not in circulation. And I'm going to talk about them, review them, rank them among the other 30 that I've done, and not play music, and that will be that. And I'm going to start off by saying that I might be having some sort of Stockholm syndrome by now, because I really enjoyed all 3 of these shows. 2 of them much more than the third, but I also enjoyed the third. And I found something valuable in each one. I found them incredibly just engaging from start to finish. And more than anything, the sort of one thing that, as I'm listening to these shows and just maybe going, another one of these, the one thing that kept just like perking me up were the Frank Zappa guitar solos. Man, and not even his guitar solos. Sometimes he's playing rhythm guitar and other people's solos and taking those to places that we haven't really gone before. I just over and over again was like, oh wow, I'm glad I listened to this show, because that guitar solo was like, yeah, that's just a one-of-a-kind thing. Might not be the best thing he ever did, but that vibe was friggin' amazing. I'm glad I experienced it. So, the guitar solos are all really good. Let's start by talking about March 7th, 1976. This is in Brussels, in Belgium. Sound is pretty okay, a little bit distant at first, but it gets better as we go on. One of the highlights in this, there was a show, a couple that I did, I think in the last video, that I called arguably the best Black Napkins ever. And in that Black Napkins, Frank's doing like a pink napkins type thing for quite a while, about 4 minutes. The audience members are talking because it's super quiet and chill. He eventually berates them, and they're just like, yeah, this is what you want. And then goes into like 6 minutes of absolute, like a monster, just a metal monster. Kind of the same thing happens here. He starts playing around all softly, though for nowhere near as long as he does in that previous show. Audience is talking. He then complains to the audience about the audience being like talkers, and then he just tears off this really huge, epic, weird, fragmented, aggressive, like I'm not even going to give you time to think, just barrage of a solo. Doesn't quite work as well as the one in the whatever the last video was. I think that might have been on the 4th, the Berlin show. It's not as good as that 4th show in Berlin, but it's still another one of those where you're like, all right, he's just, yeah. If you want a really aggressive solo, talk, and Frank will give it to you. So that's a really interesting highlight. And then in the Filthy Habits, I think this is we get a really weird Filthy Habits in this show. So we get the Navel Inca, we get a Stinkfoot. Super Frank is ready to solo in Stinkfoot. Very aggressive, very, hey, let's go. I got ideas. Really good sign for the show. Awesome Stinkfoot. Poodle Lecture, 3 minutes, Dirty Love, and then we get a Filthy Habits. Andre does his thing, always awesome, spooky, eerie. I've been listening to these in the week of Halloween, so very much fits a Halloween vibe. And then Frank comes in and starts playing very slow and tiptoey, like he's letting the Andre energy ride. He's not going to come in and just like take over. But then he is having tech problems. And so nothing happens. The band is vamping. He kind of says something at some point, I think, and then Napoleon starts playing a sax solo. So for the first time since I believe Japan, maybe right before Japan in early February, we get a sax solo. Great. Terry's crazy. It's super busy, like just this crazy, chaotic, kind of wild sax solo. Then we get a drum solo. And then after the drums, they go into the din 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 din, the breakdown at the end of Filthy Habits, in which Frank comes back in, just kind of comes back in as if he never left, and kind of makes up for lost time. It's definitely not as epic as if we had got a full Filthy Habit solo, but he does a good job of being like, hey, I'm back. I'm going to try to do it. And as I'm listening to this, man, it would have been awesome if every time there was a drum solo in a Frank Zappa show, when the drum solo ended, they came in with the breakdown, that latter half of Filthy Habits, because it works so incredibly well. But maybe not the most epic performances, but it's neat that we get this version of Filthy Habits and things are being shaken up. Freak Out Medley, that amazing Black Napkins, a really good Advanced Romance. Andre is fantastic. We do get a bad cut. Andre's scatting at one point in his solo. We do get a bad cut. Go to the end of the song. We get a Honey, an Illinois Enema Bandit that is just a really good, straightforward rock blues guitar solo. Nothing too flashy, but it delivers. Unfortunately, we have an intro. Chunga's Revenge, awesome sax solo as always. What is this? Oh, the sound starts to get really rough about this point. And the sax solo was sort of the equivalent of like listening to, like sitting in front of your dryer when you have like a pair of shoes in there and you're listening to that. It was just like, it's a little bit rough, but you can tell it's good. You can tell it's good. We get the weirdness part with the bass player. And I was thinking like, why does this not work for me? Like, what is so horrible about this compared to like if he was doing it in the 60s? And I feel like the bass player going off and doing the operatic stuff, or he wasn't saying the Miss Pinky stuff as he is now, but saying that stuff in the 60s, there was a subversiveness to it. We had yet to really, that was still shocking to audiences. Rock and roll was still shocking to audiences. In 76, it just feels like, come on, man. We've moved past this, and it's just kind of rough. Andre's solo is great jam, great solo, great energy. Andre's tone is fantastic. Then we get drums, which Terry's drum solo starts off really low key, like really quiet. Like he is challenging the audience to say something and tease him. He is almost like mimicking the low energy of Frank's Black Napkin solo. And then all of a sudden, he goes into a loud, aggressive drum solo flurry, fury, whatever that is. It's a fury of flurry, a flurry of fury. It is fantastic. Great. Just great dramatic setup from Bozio. Kind of a callback to Black Napkins. Amazing. Zoodalures, super beautiful. Very clean, kind of sparse, kind of clear. Frank starts to get funky in his guitar, but the band keeps it kind of cool, which is really nice. It has I almost feel like there is a weird aggression to almost this entire show. And from Stinkfoot on, and when we get to this solo, it almost feels like in Time Bandits. Have you seen the movie Time Bandits? When God comes out and like he's cleaning everything up and he's kind of explaining what had just happened. That's what I feel like this solo is. It's like we're coming out, we're going to be like focused, to the point, clean up this mess, send you home feeling good, turn that pig back into a human. Really, really nice. When we go into Ship Ahoy and the explaining is done, we really don't get a Ship Ahoy. We get just these really heavy riffs, and Frank just starts attacking on the guitar and just goes crazy. And then the band's like, whoa, things are going crazy. And then we get super, super, super aggressive to end the show, like a crazy hard rock riff energy to end, because that's how Stinkfoot started. Aggressive, so we're going to end aggressive. Then we get a Camarillo Man, Dynamo Hum, Slime, that is cut for the encores. Really good show, fantastic solos. But the show on the 8th is even better. All right. It's a weird tape, both audience, and there was a FM broadcast. I have both tapes. The FM broadcast has a whole lot of talking from a French DJ. The audience tape doesn't sound as good. Online, there is a hybrid that gets rid of most of the talking, but that also means most of its audience. But it's still a really good listen. This is a fantastic show. Naval, Inca Roads. Frank drops a solo. Frank drops a really good solo. Frank opens with an amazing solo and then goes into the da-na-na-na, the theme. Great way to start a show. It bodes well. Stinkfoot, fantastic. Playful, melodic, fun, but long. Patient. Frank's in no hurry, and Frank's having a good time. And that is kind of the way every solo goes. I wrote top 5 consideration for this Stinkfoot. It's a good Stinkfoot. Poodle Lecture, 3.5 minutes long. Dirty Love, Filthy Habits, Andre, Menacing, sounds great. Frank, maybe not the greatest solo on here. The breakdown is really good, super calm, kind of long. I really like the breakdown aspect of it. But in the Filthy Habits itself, the actual main solo, we're starting to get like what sounds like the Sleep Dirt solo. Like we are focusing on those same motifs, those same ideas, and you could almost hear like Frank would record that. Like after this tour, they would go in the studio, record many of the tracks that would end up on Sleep Dirt. You can feel him like figuring out what he wants to do with Filthy Habits in a definitely a little more of a like controlled way on this show and the one that follows. But it's also really good Filthy Habits. But I like the breakdown, I think, a little more than the main solo. Freak Out, we get a Black Napkins. Saxophone solo is kind of slow and Paris-y and like walking on the riverbanks, that type of thing. I like the vibe. Frank's solo kind of builds it up, brings it back down. Then he abruptly turns off the heat, and then he kind of goes somewhere else. It's just another one of those long, it's more of a roller coaster ride of a solo. Like, he might not be going anywhere. Like, he might be a lot of ups and downs, but just sit back, enjoy the ride. There's going to be like aggressive parts, calmer parts. It's just another, like Stinkfoot, really patient solo. Advanced Romance, Andre is great. Frank slows it down for his, and then just all of a sudden goes heavy and aggressive. But then, again, the groove kind of just doesn't go anywhere, and they let things just ride out. And again, Frank just takes his time, lets this solo develop. Early on, it felt like this was going to be more of an intense rush, but the band's like, no, we're going to lay back here, and Frank kind of slows things down. When he gets to the end of his solo, which is pretty long, and he's going for a while, all of a sudden we just get like this blues walk down and back into the song. Honey, Illinois Anima Bandit, has a 4.5 minute intro. Just so painful. So painful. But then we get another really good solo. It's kind of swaying. It's kind of grooving. It's kind of slow. We get some, early on, we get some VCF action, which is kind of cool. We get some wah action. Frank goes into attack mode and brings up the energy. Like the rest of the solos. Kind of going a lot of places. Takes its time. I just love the energy in this show. And then we get what might be the best Torture Never Stops of the tour. I love what this song has become by this point in the tour. I've always argued that Winter 78 was the apex of this song, but I am really enjoying the energy and the vibe, and just there's a heaviness to this that is just amazing. And the solo is just, it's torturous. Frank is like making torturing sounds, and the guitar is wailing, and that's just the way he starts. And then he just goes off on this really evil tinged tear. It's dark, it's twisted, it's melodic, it's just gleefully just kind of, it feels like what anybody who enjoys Torture That Never Stops, this is a kind of solo you would love. It's like kind of epic. It just kind of keeps going and going. Like I wrote, the sound of this is rough, this whole Torture, but the solo completely redeems it. It is just amazing. We kind of stumble to a finish at the end when we go back into the song, but who cares? It is just an evil, tinged, epic Torture solo. Then we go into CHUNGA'S. We jump into the sax solo. There's a cut. Nappy, again, just doing a great job. I love how long he gets. Then Frank does a little quick guitar solo in here, which maybe thinks we're not going to get a Zoot Allures, which we don't get, but we actually do. We'll get to that. And Frank pretty much just delivers this quick little assertive rock solo. Pretty typical little straightforward little number. Then we get the weirdness. And this is one of those shows where you can hear everything the bass player says perfectly well, and it makes it worse. When it's jumbled and weird and distorted, you're like, yeah, that could be cool. When you can actually hear it, you're like, oh no, but it isn't. A lot of Miss Pinky-centric stuff. Then we go into maybe the best thing on here, even though that Torture solo might be the best Torture solo. Andre's solo becomes an absolutely epic disco funk jam. Frank is playing some amazing rhythm. Andre comes in, and this is just like a disco funk groove. This thing is epic. I said in the last video, Coaster Magic X2, if you have any interest, a compilation of every single Andre Lewis solo from Chunga's Revenge. And this thing is sick. It is disco funk at its best. And Frank's playing rhythm. Terry's bringing it. Absolutely amazing. Then we get the drum solo. And though we get... Oh, yeah, we don't get a Zoodle Lures on this one. I'm thinking of the next show. We don't get the Zoodle Lures on this one because the DJ starts talking. We get like a little snippet, and then the thing cuts. And then we get a dynamo hum that cut, and then it cuts. So anyways, a frustrating end to this because we're missing the Zoodle Lures, but I don't care. The Chunga's is fantastic. The Tortures is probably one of the best. The Filthy Habits, we're now going towards Sleep Tour territory. Absolutely amazing show. And then finally, we close out with 31176, the weakest of the three. Offenburg, Germany. Sound is okay. Guitar sounds good, which makes it like redeeming. The overall sound is okay, but the solos come through clearly. We get an Inca with another solo. It is fantastic. This is a great trend to close the tour. Stinkfoot, we start off with a really slow version of the hippie riff. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Really good solo, light, playful, kind of scattered in all over the place, which is the way all of these solos are going to go. Poodle is 4.5 minutes. Dirty Love, Filthy Habits. Filthy Habits solo. Again, we're getting some of that Sleep Dirt action, but it feels kind of scattered. Feels very average for this tour, which is Filthy Habits is one of the best things of this tour. This is an average version of a fantastic song. Just Frank never finds that groove. And plus it stays pretty subdued. Freak Out, Black Napkins, some tuning before we get the actual song. Sax sounds good. Frank solo, fragmented, scattered, never really builds any momentum. Probably one of the weaker ones of the tour. Vance Romance, Andre is great. Frank, pretty unfocused. At one point he almost completely stops. Then he tears off these low licks. Second half, he does find a groove that kind of works, but still kind of feels disjointed. Honey, Illinois Enema Bandit has a 4.5-minute intro. Best part about that is at the end of it, Frank says, "This is not as good as the story of Hurricane." A truer thing has never been spoken, Frank, and you spoke it. Solo, pretty straightforward, pretty short. Torture, still love what this has evolved into. Absolutely evil. Probably the highlight of the show. Another fantastic Torture solo. I think there's a bad cut in the middle of it, but still we come back in and we're kind of, Frank's just kind of going and he's jamming and things are stretched out. It does also feel scattered, but in the Torture like lexicon, it kind of works because it's just like he's torturing us in different ways. At one point we run into this almost melodic, upbeat, Jerry Garcia, Deep Space, Grateful Dead era, 74 type vibe, briefly for a little while, but a really interesting Torture. Torture should have been played more off on this tour, and it should be ranked pretty high up as it's just the reasons why you should check out this tour. Torture, Chunga's Revenge, we get sax, we get the weirdness with the bass player, we get another really, really funky Andre solo. Still feels off. A lot of things just feel off tonight. This one also kind of feels off, but it's still good. Frank decides he's going to do a chordal rhythms solo where he just plays chords in the solo. First time he did that in 75, I was like, interesting. Now I'm just like, doesn't really pay off. And then he kind of says a bunch of things and things get kind of soft, almost Zoodle Lures-esque. And even though there is no Zoot Allures played. We definitely go into Zoot Allures territory. And then we get some Ship Ahoy, and almost immediately he abandons the Ship Ahoy and goes off into this weird jam that feels like a Zoot Allures solo. So even though we don't get the main theme of it, and Zoot Allures will not appear on a set list, what we get before the Ship Ahoy and after the Ship Ahoy really feel like Zoot Allures. Frank's going into that territory. He's walking through that neighborhood. We're getting that, and it's pretty interesting. And then when he ends the solo, again, we get that same blues walk down. And we're done. And then we get a Slime Berdino. No intro on the Slime. The tape cuts off that to close out. It's just a show that doesn't work. I mean, Torture is great. CHUNGA'S is good, but I don't know if they're worth ranking this too highly. Like if you're going through all the shows, eventually if you get to this, I think you'll enjoy it. Though I do think a lot of the solos early on are just don't work. Frank doesn't seem like he's found that groove. Anyways, if I were to rank these, where would I rank them? That is the top 10. I have in the top 10 the March 8th show is at 6. The March 7th show is at 7. I really, really enjoyed listening to those. And I think both of those have moments which might rank in the top 5 moments for that particular song or that particular solo of the tour. And then there is the bottom part of this list. The 11th drops all the way to 21st. Just got its moments, but it is kind of frustrating at times. And yeah, that's what I got. Those are my thoughts on these shows. If you're going to go back and check things out, I would say go back on the 7th and check out that Zoot Allures. That is just absolutely amazing. It is super heavy at the end. Wonderful. Zoot Allures is establishing its MVP credentials. Maybe listen to the Black Napkins. I would listen to the entire show on the 8th because I think the entire thing is fantastic. But if not, just listen to anything with a guitar solo because they're all good. And on the 11th, pretty much just that CHUNGA'S. Or the Torture and the CHUNGA'S. But yeah, all right, now I'm ranting. All right, subscribe, like, share, comment, do those things. Thanks for watching. Peace. 2 more shows, people. 2 more shows in 76. Winter. That's it. Peace. Talk to you later.